one. They basically all just fitted together, and it was fantastic. It worked full time, first time. There were hardly any teething issues at all. We're currently selling small quantities of domestic oil into the domestic market. We're currently out marketing more actively to get a better understanding of the oil market in this part of Kurdistan. We're hoping to achieve that 8,000 barrels per day on a longer-term contract basis by the end of this year, hopefully early next. That's just the photographs of Shaikan facility. Here's the weighbridge. Essentially, you come around, do a U-turn, and there's these top-loading facilities just here. And this is the pipeline from Shaikan 1 coming into the facilities just here. And essentially, these are all sort of skid-mounted units that were built, as I said, in Canada, and they just all fit together. It's worked very well. This is Sheikh Hadi, slightly different in terms of how the percentages work compared to Shaikan. The KRG are on the license from day one for 20%. They get carried all the way from exploration through to first production. We have 80%, and this interest can't be diluted. And we've shot the seismic. The well's currently drilling, so hopefully good news next year. That's just some photographs of the location. This is most of the sort of offices right next to the rig. The drilling bit's just been pulled out. This is a logging tool over here. These are various wellheads that we've used, and we're on this one now. Berbahar is similar to Sheikh Hadi. Again, KRG are on the license from day one for 20%. In this instance, Janelle has to carry the KRG for their 20% share, so we just have a straight 40% interest. We're very keen to get this well drilled, and it needs to be done by March 2012. And as I said, we see this as a very large structure, bigger than Shaikan. Over here, that little flat spot, that line, green line, that's where the city of Duhok is. So we go there on a fairly regular basis now. It's most probably the most pleasant town that I've been to in this part of Iraq. It's a normal town. And just coming on to Akrabajil, this is the well that we drilled. This blue purpley line is where we tested 3,700 barrels of oil per day. And then just further down to this light blue line, that's the 400-meter oil column I think we've talked about in our announcements. What we think's happened here is essentially we've drilled the very last appraisal well first. Normally you would drill the exploration well on the top of the structure. That's the location of the well just there. So we're going to come back to this Beckme location and drill a well here in 2011 towards the summer. And as you can see, there are two very large structures. These are both, I would say, Shaikan proportions, possibly a little bit smaller, possibly a little bit bigger. In fact, you can see on the seismic here, these beds suddenly moving upwards. That is going up towards the Beckme structure. The reason this well was drilled first is MOL had a concern that the oil seeps that you could see on Shaikan meant that over time the structure breached and all the oil had escaped. And this is a very subtle structure compared to these other ones, and they just felt it had more of a self-contained unit about it, and there were no oil seeps at the surface. And that's just a picture. So this is in the winter time. This is in the summer. So this is about 50 degrees heat. Okay, I think we'll just go back and let's talk. Okay, sort of legal and commercial position, I know this is an area that a lot of people ask questions. We have to go back to the Constitution of Iraq. That is the founding document or basis for the modern state of Iraq. And within that they have allowed for 3 separate areas to be, if you like, become semi-autonomous. One is the Kurdish area, another is an area for the Sunnis, and then one for the Shias. But it's only the Kurds who have really taken advantage of this, and have, I suppose, also because of the benefits of the first Gulf War, have established their own local system of government and running the country, which is most probably significantly ahead of other parts of Iraq. Now, within the Constitution, they also allow for these areas to award their own exploration concessions. And that's what Kurdistan has done. They've gone ahead and awarded these. And these are different from the oil service contracts which are being awarded by Baghdad in other parts of Iraq, which are production focused. You have existing fields which need to be redeveloped, and they're awarding contracts on that basis. What you then have within Kurdistan is their own oil and gas law. The parliament has passed an oil and gas law, and that was designed around the draft oil and gas law, which has not yet been approved by the Iraqi parliament. So once that oil and gas law is passed, the two will knit together and sit side by side. So it's consistent with what else has been prepared in terms of the oil and gas law. When Kurdistan originally awarded these production sharing contracts, the oil minister in Baghdad, Mr. Shahrastani, said, "Well, we'll have to change the constitution of Iraq." And I think clearly that's something which was never going to happen, considering how important it was to the modern state, and also the fact that the different parts of Kurdistan, of Iraq, have to work together under that constitution. So what seems to have happened now, they're focusing on how they actually share the revenue that would be derived from oil production. And there is this draft revenue sharing law, of which 17% of all oil and gas revenue in Iraq would go to Kurdistan, and then the rest would remain for other parts of Iraq. And when we talk about the 17%, what they have been certainly discussing in great detail is 17% of what? So for example, does it include the cost recovery oil? Do they have to pay some share of the profit oil to the oil companies as well? And just before the elections this year, there was a lot of noises that they had reached some sort of interim agreement on this. And then after the elections, that was also sort of reiterated. But I think clearly things have moved on since then, because the formation of the new government took such a long time that I think the demands, if you like, or expectations of the Kurds have changed, and they've put a big list. I think some of you may know of this 18 to 19 point list in order to get them to support Maliki as Prime Minister. So I think clearly I think the Kurds are in a strong negotiating position now, because the government of Iraq, I think, going from this point forward, is clearly always going to require, I think, a coalition of some kind in order to be representative of all of the people of Iraq. I think that's about it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So 2 minutes and 15 seconds for questions, but we also have an hour for questions down there. So who'd like to start with some nice snappy questions?
Berbahar, there was some talk that GKP was going to take over the operatorship of Berbahar. Is that still on the cards?
I don't think so. I think the only thing that would make us do that is if Janelle didn't have the money to drill this well, because I know they've been under financial constraints, in which case we would sole risk it and then most probably take over operatorship. But it's in their budget for next year. We fully expect them to operate and get this well drilled. I think they're very keen to do it as well. Clearly it's a very significant structure, and I think it would be amiss of them not to drill it.
Do they actually have a rig
contracted, or what status is on the negotiations?
Well, I think I mentioned that we are currently out for tendering on the rigs. I thought it was originally 11, but I think that it's now 8 submissions that we've had. And I think what we'll do is we'll share that information with Gunnell so that they can pick one of them to drill this well.
Ewan, a little bit probably difficult to comment at this stage, but the quality of the reservoir, the properties at this juncture, any sort of indication?
We think it's very good. The way I would describe it in non-technical terms is if you imagine a rubble field or a glass of water with some pebbles in it, it's very easy to stick a straw in and suck it out.
Okay.
But if it was water and you put a sponge in it and then you took a straw and tried to get the water out of the sponge, it'd be very difficult. So it's very fractured, broken up. I mean, some of the permeability, you're talking numbers like 10 Darcy, which is very, very high.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, one more quick one.
Yeah, quick one. The PSCs, what I wasn't quite sure of was, what is your kind of final net interest in the production after cost recovery?
The way it works is, first of all, there's 10% royalty.
Right.
Right, then that 90% it gets roughly 40 to 50% for cost recovery, and then the remainder, the sort of 50 to 60%, goes to the state. Sorry, it goes for profit oil, and then you have to do a calculation, which means that in the initial stages where total investment divided by total revenue divided by total investment is high, i.e. there's an R factor calculation, you get somewhere in the region of I think it's 20 to 30%, and that gets squeezed down sort of between 10 to 20% later on in field life.
So do your kind of base development case, what do you think your kind of net revenue is going to be?
And
Interest?
wait, are you talking about barrels or
Percentage of?
percentages? I think it will be somewhere north of 10%. Yeah.
There was one more there, and I will have to.
Is it your view that the adoption of the oil and gas law and the appointment of government ministers is already fully discounted by the market, or do you expect that the market can reappraise the value of the company when that additional uncertainty is taken out?
Well, I can't predict what the market's going to do. I certainly think there is an expectation out there that once all of these issues are resolved, it will be good for the company, other companies in the region, and in turn good for the share price. It would just remove one element of uncertainty.
Thanks very much, Ewan.